Hello, and welcome to With Winning in Mind podcast. I'm Heather Sumlin with
Troy Bassham and
Lanny Bassham.
Awesome. So we brought Lanny in today because we're going to talk about something we don't talk about a lot. We talk a lot about success. And today we're going to talk about failure. So, Troy, why don't you start off with some questions for Lanny, or we're just going to have a discussion today. I think it'll be fun.
yeah, let's start with why should somebody quit? Why is failure good? Yeah,
When is failure beneficial?
failure is necessary. I don't know. One of those three.
Well,
what do you want to tackle?
Dad had started saying something before we started recording, so I'm gonna let you launch into what you were saying just a minute ago.
Well, I often ask my clients, do you want to win? And they always say, yes, I want to win. And then you say, well, do you want to win all the time? And they say, yes, I want to win all the time. And I think, well, what if you did? I mean,
Boy, that'd be
now,
cool.
I'm not, yeah, but think about it for a little bit. Let's say you won all the time, and how many wins in a row would it take until you started thinking, oh, this isn't a challenge anymore? I win all the time. How many wins in a row would it take before you started maybe cutting back on your training and saying, can I win with a little bit less preparation? You know, pretty soon we are not motivated to work harder when we win. Winning is it's a wonderful thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against winning at all, and I love those days when everything goes well. But you don't learn very much when everything goes well. You learn when they don't go well. That you get motivated to get better when you're not quite making it. Nobody works harder after a tournament than the person that's first runner-up or silver medalist or somebody like that. So there is a value in knowing how to deal with failure, and that's really what we're talking about here. It's not like I'm promoting that you go out and try to fail or anything like that. I'm just saying that we tend to learn more when we're failing than we do when we're succeeding. And so the idea here is to realize that life is really all a competition. Life in general is really all about peaks and valleys. And your job really is not to eliminate the valleys, because you learn more in the valleys than you do in the peaks, but to extend the peaks those times when everything is going well, and reduce the amount of time you spend in the valley when things aren't going well. So learning how to respond to what happens to you, and so to realize that every world and Olympic champion that I've ever met, when you ask them the question, you know, have you failed much? They said, oh, I've failed thousands of times. They all say the same thing. I've failed thousands of times. But the difference between me and maybe the people that I beat is that I learned from all the failures, all the mistakes that I made. I learned from those mistakes. So it's a matter of failure is important when you use it, instead of it becomes something that takes you down.
Well, shouldn't we change the mindset behind? Because I think when we think of ourselves as failing, we might internalize that as I'm a failure. And you're not saying that that's valuable, right? You're saying that it's okay to not reach your potential if you're learning why you didn't. And then you're taking those lessons and applying it. So it's not necessarily, because you either win or you learn, right? So how does that connect with this concept of failure?
Well, yeah, we teach that making a mistake is not a mental error. Making a mistake and learning from it is a requirement to get better. Mm-hmm. So all champions, all people that dominate their sports, when they make a mistake, it's like, okay, what's the solution? You know, you go quickly to the solution, and they don't react this way, that, well, I'm just no good, or I'm going to quit, or this is unpleasant. I don't want to have any unpleasantness, so I'll just not show up next time. Well, that's not such a good result either. So what a champion does is they think, okay, that happened. What's that teaching me? And you realize that everything that happens to you kind of needs to happen. When we talk about fear and how to overcome fear, we say that every time you do that, every action that you take or competition that you're in has the potential for it to go really well or it not to go well. And when it doesn't go well, if you learn from the mistakes that you make, then the only two outcomes in every competition is you win or you learn. There's no winning and losing. And one thing I love about rifle shooting and archery and sports like that, and sometimes in archery it happens this way. But in tennis, for example, it's you have a match against somebody, and you win or lose that match, right? In shooting, we're all kind of shooting at the same time, so we don't have a win or lose scenario in there. But in sports where there is a match play thing, like an Olympic round in archery, you're shooting against somebody. So it's a little bit like tennis, and so the tendency is, well, I lost to this guy or I won that tournament. So the idea that some people take away from that is that when I'm a winner, because I win, I'm a winner. Because I lose, I'm a loser. Is totally the wrong way to look at it. You should say, okay, why did I win, and why am I learning when I'm not winning? What is it that I'm trying to learn? So actually, when knowing how to use failure is really the key. Is that we're all going to be beaten by somebody at some point in the race of life and all things that you're going to do. And the solution to that is to say, what is it that this is teaching me? And try to find a solution so that it doesn't happen to you less often. You want it to happen less often.
Yeah, Father Time's undefeated. He'll beat you one time or another. Father Time is unbeaten.
No, I can't.
He winds up getting everybody at one time or the other. So.
Well, I don't care who you are. Sooner or later, I don't care how dominant you are as a performer. Sooner or later, either you're going to age out of your sport, or you're just somebody's. Okay, you had your day in the sun, and then it's time for somebody else to have their day in the sun. And it happened to me. I got tired of being a participant when the day in the sun was one of my teammates, and that went on for a long time, for about 3 years. When is my time gonna show up? And so it didn't happen for a long time. 3 long years going tournament after tournament after tournament, watching my teammates win, and I wasn't getting on the podium. And but that it gave me an opportunity to discover mental management, and that was the turning point. And then once I made that adjustment, then it was my time, because I was able to go around the best in the world for a while, from 1974 through about 1978, maybe 79, something around in those areas. Those years, I was able to, I pretty much won everything I went to, all the national championships. I didn't go to a lot of tournaments, but I was definitely the dominant rifle shooter in the world for a period of time. Now, most of the time, what happens to athletes didn't happen to me. My situation was kind of unique, because the way I got out is that I went to train one day. I was getting ready for the World Championships in 1982, and I just expected to have a regular training day, just like always happened. And I go to the range, and I'm looking through my sights, and the sights are fuzzy. The front sight that we shoot, or the ring front sight, was not clear. And I've always had great vision, and so I couldn't tell the difference between a 10 and a 9. And I thought, well, there's something wrong with that ring. So I took the ring out and cleaned it and blew on it and did everything, but I couldn't get it to clear up. And so I thought, well, I don't know, maybe I'm getting, older, so maybe it's time for glasses or correction. And so I make an appointment to the eye doctor, and he says, oh, well, I'm going to give you a prescription here, and we'll order you a lens. Now, back in those days, it took a couple of weeks to get a lens in. So I'm not training for until the lens comes in. I mean, I go out and look through my sights. Oh, it's still busy. It's still buzzy. And finally, the lens came in. I put him in shooting glasses, excited to go back to training. And I can't see any better with the new lens than I did without the lens. So I go back into the eye doctor, and he says, well, your prescription has changed. And then he tests me 2 or 3 times that week, and he says, your prescription is different every time you come in. He says, so it's just varying all the time. I don't know why it's doing that. He sent me off to a specialist, and he said, well, I know what's wrong with you. I said, oh, great. And he said, well, your prescription, your vision's changing every day. I said, oh, I kind of knew that. He said, but it's not changing much. It's not going to bother you. You can read, you can drive, you can do everything else. He said, you still have 20/20 vision. I said, well, it's not good enough to shoot international rifle. He said, well, is that important to you?
Just a little.
Kinda.
Just a little.
And so finally, after going to 2 or 3 guys, I had to call the national team and say, take me off the team. So I got derailed like by a medical thing that I couldn't fix. But at least I went out on top. I mean, I didn't have to suffer what happens to most elite performers, is that either somebody is coming up behind you and overtakes you. There was a newer gunslinger in town that's faster than you, and he takes you out. I didn't have to suffer that, but it also felt like my career was just when things were going really great. I wasn't beaten by somebody else. I was beaten by something I couldn't control, which was a vision loss. But everybody is going to, I don't care where you are, if you stay in the sport long enough, you're going to have somebody that's going to come up, and it's their day in the sun. And sometimes their day in the sun is kind of a one-hit wonder. A guy will come up, he'll win a world title, and then nothing after that. It's a one-hit song, and you don't have enough hits to make an album, or nobody hears from you again, and that happens a lot of times. But and you have people that dominate for quite a while, like Wigger did, and Ryder had his period, and he went around Wigger. Right after he got out of college, he went right on the United States team, and immediately he's in the top 2 in the world. Right after college, it took me 3 long years to ever get to the point to where I could do that. He did it fast. And then today we have guys that are still in college that win gold medals in the Olympics. So you just don't know how that's gonna work. But you're going to have to deal, at some point, you're going to have to deal with the fact that even though you do well, you're not winning. And you're going to have to find a way to deal with winning and deal with losing too.
Yeah, but when do you know I need to quit? We're talking about people that are close there, getting to the next level, but what if you're not quite at that level and you've been doing it for a while? When do you decide I need to hang it up? It's just not going to happen.
Well, I think everybody in sport kind of has this question in their mind: Am I capable? I mean, have I gone as far as I can go? I mean, you're talking about world titles, world champion, national champion, things where there are unique goals where only one person can do it. You go you compete every year, and maybe you get in the top 10 one time, and then maybe next time you're less than top 10. And if you're on a PGA tour and you win, maybe you win one or two tournaments, but it's been a long time since you can win. Of course, on the PGA Tour, you can not win and still make $1 million, so in a year, or a couple of million a year. But there, at some point, you have to ask yourself the question: is this as far as have I reached my peak?
Right.
And the question is, you don't know. I have had clients. Recently, I won't name him, but if I did, you'd know who he was. That asked for consultation, and he says, "Look," he says, "I've won a lot. I've been in he says, I'm having trouble getting back in there. I'm doing everything I know to do. My mental game is strong, and my technique is fine, but I just can't crack the winning, and I've just decided that if I can't win, then I just want to quit. Do you think I should quit?" And I basically did what I hope that most parents would do or counselors would do. I just said, "Keep talking." And so he just kept talking, and I finally asked a few questions, things like, what does it feel like when you're winning, and is the prize worth the price? Are you willing to train at the level that you have to train at to be competitive at the level that you once were? Is because as you age, things it gets harder. You don't have the young eyes and the young hands that you had for years, and those are huge advantages. And so you get to the point to where that decision has to be made. Are you willing to continue to compete and know that you're not going to win tournaments, but you enjoy the sport enough and the camaraderie with the people that you're willing to accept the fact that you're just not going to win the tournaments that you had before? And so if that's your decision, then you probably need to change your goals to say, well, this is what I'm willing to do, and this is the expectation that I think those results would have would be. If that's okay, then you'll be able to do that. So I asked this guy, what he thought about that. He says I don't know. I said, do you think you have is your self-image still, I'm the best in the country? Is the self-image still there? He says, the self-image is still there. And I says, is your skills there? And he says, I think my skills are still there. It's just that there's too many really good guys, out there, and I don't know if I'm willing to train to get to the level that they're at to be able to win. And I says, well, how much do you want? How bad do you want it? And he says, I don't know. Kind of going back and forth till finally he said, well, do you think I could win again? I said, absolutely, you can win again. I said, but it's a decision that you make, a mindset that you make that you are going to make it happen, and that you're going to train but you have to be willing to do the things that you know that you have to do. Because if you cut any of those corners, and you're going up against guys who don't cut corners, and so you can't beat those guys. So he says, I'm going to go for it. Well, he won the world championship after that, and but there's going to come a time when you have to be realistic, and you have to evaluate, is the prize worth the price, and if it's not worth the price, then you have to decide, do I just retire and I don't show up at all? I do something else, I coach, or something else, or I simply just continue to perform. I think personally, I loved winning, and I loved going to tournaments with my teammates. And you got to know why you are doing what you're doing. I knew what my why was. I wanted to know what my true potential was. It was, and if can I be the best shooter on my college team? When I did that, can I be a collegiate All-American? I did that. Can I be a national champion? I did that. Can I make a world championship team? Yes, I did that. Can I win an individual world championships? I did that. Can I win a medal in the Olympics? I did that. Can I win a gold medal in the Olympics? I did that. Okay, so when you get to can you be a world champion and Olympic champion at the same time? I mean, the golds never stop. Even if you have multiple gold medals in the Olympics, there's always going to be somebody who's got multiple gold medals than you got. So there's no. It's not like a mountain where it's the tallest mountain in the world. You climb it, and there's no other place to go. I mean, the closest thing you can come to that's the Olympic gold medal. But are you willing to do what it takes to be able to do that again? I mean, doing it the first time, to me, if I didn't have a goal that I'd never done, I don't think I would have continued to shoot.
So that's the difference between there's two types of people we're talking about. You're talking about the people who are already dominant and winning at a high level. But then there's also another group of people that are trying to get to that level, and they can't go. So if we look at golf, you got people already on the PGA Tour. They're winning on the PGA Tour. But there's a whole slew of other people, just as much skill as they have, but they're not able to get on that corn for a PGA Tour. And how long do they make it? So is the difference the people that are on there know why, and the other people are chasing a what?
Well, I think that, yes, the big difference is that the people who have already done it, their self-image has the imprinting that they have the actual imprint that I have done that. I am compatible. It's not a question anymore. They have done it. So there is a difference between going for something again and having never done it. And so, but I think the question about whether you should continue to go for it or to back off or to maybe retire or maybe to change your goals is similar in the way that you look at it, because you don't know. In both of those cases, you don't know whether or not you can do it. But if you have a pretty good idea of what it takes to do that, I think the person who sets a goal, like we have this scenario a lot in our business, is that people will call us up and say, I want to be the best at, I don't care whatever it is. I want to be Miss America. I want to win the Vegas shoot in archery. I want to be an Olympic gold medalist in shooting, or whatever it is. And they come up with these goals, and so they have no idea how hard that is. It's like, well, I want you to train me. I want to win the Olympics. And I said, well, how long have you been shooting? Oh, about a year. And when do you want to do this? Well, I want to go to the 2024. Well, I want to win in 2024. And you've been shooting a year, and it's 2021, and you want to win the Olympics in 2024? Is that possible? Yes. It's possible. Is it probable?
No.
No. And can you win a gold medal in the Olympics? You got to be careful about what event you choose, because there's a lot of things you have to do to even to be eligible to go to the Olympics. And so, how are you going to get on the national team? And is it a sport that you can train? The number of days a week and number of tournaments a year. Got to go to a World Cup. Got to get a minimum qualifying score. You got to win the tryout, and your country has to have a quota slot. And there's a real good possibility that you're in a country that they're not going to get their quota slots, and I don't care how good you get, you're not going to go to the Olympics. So people just don't understand that, and they make unrealistic expectations. So their goals are way out of whack, and I believe that people appreciate things in direct proportion to the price they pay for them. I'm glad that it took 3 long years of apprenticeship before I won my first world title. I think I was better at handling it than I would have been if I had come out right out of college.
Yeah, but Jack had a different approach. Why wait 3 years?
Yeah.
I'm going to start now.
Well, the principle of the individual, right? What works for one doesn't work for everyone. So Dad needed a different.
Well, Dad took
channel.
Wigger's approach. Wigger didn't really win anything in his first 3 years.
No, he didn't. Wigger,
and then he became one of the most dominant shooters of all time.
Yeah, but the difference is that when Jack, now you have to talk to him, but it appears that when he couldn't make the Olympic team in 1976, he was certainly training hard for it. He was third in the tryout, and he missed the tryout by 1 point anyway.
Oh my!
So I mean it was very short, very 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 close. So I think that you don't have to fact check that. That might not be true, but he was definitely. He stopped shooting after he made the Olympics, and I think that from 1968 to 1976 was a long enough period of time that Ryder was willing to give up his life for his sport. And he was already out of the Army. He was in the reserves. The reserve program was starting to fade away, and he saw the handwriting on the wall, and he decided to hang it up. He shot a little Olympic rapid fire for a while. Somebody told me, but he pretty much stopped Olympic rifle shooting after. So he chose a way out. Is that okay? If I can't. He left the sport. He wasn't number one in the sport when he left, but he was.
It's also a sport though that you can't make a living in. We also work with people who make a living in their sport. So if you were making a living in your sport, it might be a different outcome there. You know, what do you do when you're striving to reach a level to where you can literally change your livelihood in what you can do? That's why golf is so popular. If you make it on the PGA Tour and you win on the PGA Tour, it's life-changing. The amount of money you get is totally life-changing. These guys will literally, you're talking about winning over $1 million on just a regular PGA Tour event, let alone what you get if you win a major. So there's thousands and thousands of golfers trying to make it on that tour. And year after year after year, there's a whole group of them that don't make it. There's only so many that can make it. Just like you say, there's only one gold medalist. Well, there's only like 100 people that do this or 50 people that do that. You only have so many qualifying spots, and there's a track to get there. Although there might be a few different ways to get there. You might get an invite, go to a tournament, wind up winning it, and they're like, hey, guess what? You're on tour. That's rare. Or you go through the ranks. I'm going to go on this tour. Then I finish in the top there, and I get on this tour, finish top there. And now I'm on the, quote, the main tour, which is the PGA Tour. But when you have a lot of people that are really, really good, and there's a lot of golfers that are really, really good, how many years do you take before you have to, man, it's just not going to be?
Well, it depends on if you get married or not. Because if you get married or not, how long do you want to stay married and broke? You know, I mean, it becomes a financial decision. I mean, why did you leave? You were on the way up. You were first alternate in 2 Olympic trials at the Army Marksmanship Unit. You could have stayed in the Army. You could have done it for a career. They would have left you there. You were a dominant shooter for the Army. Why did you leave?
Well, it's simple. Money. I was a sergeant in the Army and not qualified for food stamps. And I've got 2 little kids, so at what point do you keep going? But if I was in a sport that was revenue generating, I would have kept going.
Sure.
I mean, I left the Army 2 days after I came back from the highest score I've ever shot in international competition. So I was just hitting my prime when I said, okay, I'm not doing this. But it's simple. You have no money. And if you don't have money and you got kids, what are you going to do? And the other thing is there's no guarantees in life. So there's no guarantee that the third opportunity I was going to crack and make it. You know, one, in rifle shooting, you have to get, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, your country has to earn a quota spot, but you only get 2. Mm-hmm. So you can only earn 2. Well, in 1974, the top 4 shooters were all stationed at the Army Marksmanship Unit. You were one of them.
Yep.
Okay, but your country can only take 2, but the top 4. So the Olympics is supposed to be the best of the best, but you left 2 of the top 4 at home. So the Olympics isn't about the best of the best. If it was, they would have allowed 4 quotas in that Olympics. Well, it just is a part of our sport. They can't let everyone in, just like they can't let every sport in. Although, I mean, they're doing a good job of a variety of sports and, you know, changing with the times and that kind of stuff. But you're still limited to where there's still top people that are at home that could have won a medal in that area. But when you look at professional sports, you know, I think if I was good at something else, you know, if I was as good in golf that I was in shooting, then the opportunities in golf are far outweigh what shooting.
Oh, golf's a better sport. Golf's a much better sport. I wish I'd have picked up a golf club instead of a rifle. I've thought that many times. I mean, it's not a lucrative profession. It's a very expensive sport to train for. And shotgun, rifle, it doesn't matter what. It's not as expensive as equestrian, but
but the reward for many people, if you can crack that one level, if you can crack into that, and we're not talking about top tier level. You don't have to be the top tier dominant person. There's very few people in that sport that win on any consistent basis. There's very few, right?
Which sport?
Golf.
Yeah.
There's very few that win on consistent. Well, you could probably say there's very few people that win at the top level in all sport. Yeah. You know, when you're talking about consistency of winning, there's a fine line. You know, that's why the top. You came up with that slogan: 95% of winning. 95% of winning is done by 5% of the participants. It's because that 5%. It's a fancy way of saying the majority of winning is being done by the few. Why does Tom Brady at 44 still play in the NFL? Because he wins. Mm-hmm. He still wins. So, winning drives a lot of people to do great things. So when you're looking at that, you're like, okay, well, there are some sports, though, the opportunity, if you crack, you know, tier 2 level, you don't have to get to tier 1. I mean, let's face it, most people aren't going to make it in the top 5%. They just won't do it. But that doesn't mean, I mean, it's not like all the Hall of Famers in the Hall of Fame of every sport are all top 5%ers. There's that second tier level that you got a lot of guys. They crack, they win this big event, and they have a nice little career. And they're like, yeah, he was one of the best. Was he the best of the best? Maybe not, but he was one of the best. So he still gets that credit. And there's some sports that when you get to that point, it can literally be life changing. So you know, it's hard to know what that time, like Heather said, it's the principle of the individual. Mm. You know, what works for one doesn't work for all. Well, part of that is the timeline. For you, it was 3 years. You know, for me, it was 8 years, but there's not enough money there for me to move forward to still do. And what would have done, if I would have won the Olympics, how would my life be different today?
There's no way to really know that.
I could go to elementary schools and show off my medal. That's about it. But as far as what it would do for my income and what I do, wouldn't change anything. But boy, if I was trying to make in the major leagues in baseball, if I was trying to make it on the PGA Tour, if I was trying to make in the NFL, if I was trying to make the NBA, I mean, if you can be a superstar in the UFC, I mean, think about life change for a lot of these people. And what I've discovered is you don't have to crack the top tier, but the next tier, and you say this all the time, there's not much difference between the tier 1, tier 2 guy.
As far as skill and ability.
Oh yeah. Skill's identical. It's just that one little, it gets into the conscious self-image thing that's a little bit differently. It goes back to your conversation when one guy, should I continue moving on and so forth. But then you got the tier 3, tier 4 that's not far behind, which people kind of come through the ranks. And so that's why I like where we're at today in society. There's a lot of sports that you got a lot of good athletes. May not be great, but if they can get good enough, it could be life-changing for them. But how long do you work at it? How long do you do it?
Well,
at what time do you say, yep, this might be time to quit?
But are you quitting? Are you actually quitting, or are you trading up? Because it's the one thing that I love about when Dad talks about never quit, but you can trade up for a different dream that matters more to you, that's more important to you. I feel like that's what you did. You didn't necessarily quit on something. It's like, oh, I'm just going to quit that. You said, I have to let that dream go to pursue what I need to do. So you traded up.
Well, it's not worth winning an Olympic gold medal, in my opinion, is not worth losing your family over. And there's just certain things that you're going to be pressed with. And so your comment, although it's funny, but it depends if you're married or not. It is true. You got a family to support, think about.
You have your priorities. I mean, a person's, it's okay to have your job be above your for a while, or your sport to be for a while. It's kind of the most important thing. It should never be more important than your spiritual relationship with God, and it should never really be more important than your obligations to your family. But it could be more important than monetary or career. It's not a good thing to go to the Army Marksmanship Unit if you want to be a general in the Army, or if you want to be a full colonel in the Army as an officer. That's not a good place to go. There's never been somebody that's assigned to the United States Army Marksmanship Unit. It's not a career-building assignment, and so. But I got to say that if it hadn't been for shooting, my shooting goals, would I have gone in the Army? I might have considered it. But the major reason why I went in the Army was the United States Army Marksmanship Unit. I know that was the only reason you went in the Army. I didn't think you had any idea of making it a career. But,
No.
But not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, my father had a career in the military. I really enjoyed most of the time.
Hang on a second.
The best job I ever had in my life was in the Army, and the worst job I ever had in my life was in the Army. So
I'm going to enlist in the military, give up my freedom to make peanuts, to serve my country. Most people are not willing to do that.
No.
There has to be another reason to do it. For me, it was because they had the Army Marksmanship Unit. I want to see how good can I be at the international level. I knew from a junior, collegiate, national, okay, what about the international level? It was the only option to be able to do that. So there's a good trade-off. Hey, give up your freedom. Now, we give you security. The military does give you security. I will say that.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about not being fed or having shelter, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to your freedom, when they tell you, hey, you need to go here, you go there. There's no, well, hang on, let's talk about it. I never got to negotiate what trip I get to go to.
No.
I was always told what trip I get to go to.
No.
And so forth. So there is a trade-off, and once you've experienced that, and one of the second reasons why is, okay, do I really want this type of lifestyle, further on, where I don't have some of the say that I want to have, and as a result, it affects other people in your life.
Sure.
Okay, so you look at it from that standpoint, and most people won't, but there's always a trade-off. Most people that I know that are listing going in, what's the trade-off? I can get my college paid for. So there's a nice trade-off there for them. And I think that's really goes back to the main question. At what point do you quit? Well, what is the trade-off? And it hits what you're saying. Am I trading up or am I trading out? If I'm trading out, I'm quitting, which you will regret years later. But if you're trading up, you're going to have rewards years later. That's kind of how I guess these, because it's a tough position when you're chasing high goals in anything in life. There's going to come a point to where you say, okay, how much longer do I give this? And so when I'm talking to people, and you mentioned they say, I want to go for the Olympics, I want to do this. The Olympic thing is easy. When somebody calls and say, hey, I want to go to the Olympics, or my kid wants to go to the Olympics, I always say, so you're willing to give it 8 years? And they'll go, 8 years? Why? And I'm like, well, the Olympics is every 4 years. So there's 4 years. And then if you don't make it, did you learn something that might improve the probability of getting it next time? Yeah. Okay. So you're committing to 8. You're committing to 2 tries. So if it's like, hey, I'm out of college, I want to go to this, whatever it is, well, you're going to have to give yourself at least 2 opportunities to do that. But once you've given yourself 2 opportunities, now the hard question, how much further do I have it? I had a guy call me earlier in the week. He said, Troy, I'm taking, I don't know how much time off. I'm taking some time off. I've been doing this for a long time at a high level, and I just don't know. I don't know. Well, that's a strange position to be in, because you're good. You're as good as some of the guys who are already where you want to be, but for some reason you're not there. And how long do you give it? And I go back to that question as well. Do you have a timeline? Do you know why you're doing it, and do you know what you're going for? And I think goes back to the why.
I think one of the ways that we can help people, and one of the reasons we have a business like our business, is because there was a real good reason why in that 3 years that I was not winning, that I was not winning. I didn't have a mental game. There was information I didn't know, and when I discovered that information and educated myself and trained with mental management, it was a game changer. How many people are out there listening to this, watching this, that you're just under the winners, and it could be that you recognize that it's probably your mental game, but there's information you just don't know. You don't know how to develop a mental process that's can move you forward. It just could be that you're in the second 5%, wanting to be in the top 5%, and the reason why you're not there is because you don't have the information that we have. And if that's the case, then this can be a game changer for you. And this happens to us all the time. We have clients that come to us all the time, every day. They come to us and they realize, oh, I wish I'd learned this sooner. I wish I'd known this, and it makes a tremendous difference in what they do. We can't guarantee you that you're going to be, that this is going to be the answer, but in so many people. It is the answer. It's the thing that they thought they had a handle on it. But if you're inconsistent in tournaments, if your training scores are better than your competition scores, there's a real good chance that you don't have a mental process that you could have if you worked with us.
So, what is the one thing that you think most people are missing? I mean, you're talking about a big term, but if we narrow it down, is there one thing that shows up more than others?
Yes. Well, let me
within the mental game.
I don't. It's hard because when you talk about this one thing, you're also it bleeds into other things that you have to know, and I think if I were to say what's the most important thing, it would probably be the reinforcement phase of a task and how that affects the self-image growth of the participant. And you can't really get to the reinforcement phase without a mental process. You can't have a mental process without an anticipation phase. You can't have a mental process without having a fundamental values that you build on. So I just feel like that if the thing that I see that most of the people that don't know anything about mental management, that they learn, that is the game changer for most of them, is the fact that they learn how to respond to what happened to them instead of reacting to it. They learn how performance is generated, so that they understand that performance is a three circle model: conscious, subconscious, self-image, not just a skill level model. I think that's a big game changer when they just understand how performance is generated. And then when you realize that your self-image has to be a certain size, or it doesn't matter if you got this much skill and this much self-image, you're only going to use that much of your skill in your career, and you've got to build that self-image at the same time that you're building your subconscious skill, and we can help people do that, and that's kind of the big game changer for me. I know that I was over trying, and I had to solve that problem. And a lot of people, that's a big deal. But it's not going to be necessarily the same thing for everybody. You know, I wish I had a pill that we could just give somebody, and boy, that would cure them of all of their ills. There's different maladies in clients, you know, and some of them need more of this and less of this, and that's what makes teaching mental management very interesting. But I think that what people need the most, they're not even looking at that. Mm-hmm. They're not even thinking about, I should pay attention to what, after I'm a golfer, I should pay attention to what I think about after I had a shot? Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to keep a performance journal? Why? Why? You know, when I hit a good shot, I'm happy. When I had a bad shot, I'm not.
And so then your mental game's not consistent.
That's all you got to do.
Well, Here's what I want to do. So you talked a little bit about how some people don't have the information that they really need, and that's what we provide. So what I want to do is close out this conversation and start another one just for our Patreon members, because I have a list of questions that have been posted on your Facebook page from people that follow you that want to have these answers. And I think it'd be a great episode for our Patreon membership. So those who are our silver and gold level Patreon members will be able to hear the answers to all of these wonderful questions.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Troy, so much for your time. Thank you, Lanny, for your time. And if you want to become a Patreon member, I'll have a link right there in that comment section, or that, what do we call it? Show notes, I guess is maybe what they call it, where you can find out more. So like this channel, subscribe to this channel, or like this podcast, subscribe to this channel. One of these days I'll figure it out. Y'all have a wonderful, blessed rest of your day.